Welcome back to part two of this political discussion with my friend Kate White, aka Mama Kate, the heart centered, lovely, nurturing mom that we all need during these times. And last week we talked about political grief and how it's generational. It affects us for generations to come, and trauma is generations past. Today's episode is of the utmost importance because it's all about healing so that we don't keep perpetuating that as much as we can. I want to start out by telling you a little bit about some research concerning this political angst. And it really doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on because it does affect everyone. So the research is saying that the isolation during political turmoil is increased tremendously. And statistics are showing about 60% of the youth, no matter what side of the fence you are, experience this tremendous isolation, grief, which leads to depression, anxiety, and not being mentally well. So, what can we do about that? That's what we're going to talk about today. I do want you to hit that like and subscribe button, share this with your friends, and please leave us a comment. Both Kate and I want to hear what you have to say so we can address it. I know for my own journey and for Kate's too, I know a little bit about her journey. We have both done a tremendous amount of radical self love and healing. What that looks for each of us is similar but different. So we're going to come together and share some of those experiences, give you some tips on what you can do to help heal your heart, whether you're hurting or whether one of your loved ones is hurting or somebody on the other side of the political fence is hurting. It's all important. With that being said, what is something that you can share with everyone about what you have started to do when you first began your healing journey to address your heart space?
Okay, so there's a whole lot that we can do, but the primary things that I have learned to bring balance into my life is to remember the breath. And whether that is a focused breath work, which I do, somatic breath work, or it's simply breathing through the nose and out through the mouth, you're oxygenating the cells in your body. You're bringing them back into stasis. You're bringing them back into wholeness. Movement, we talked about last time, and really just ecstatic dance and moving and telling my body it's safe. And then some kind of creative practice on the daily basis. And I just wanted to add one thing to your research there. In these times, often we see addiction rise, those numbers rise up. And what I learned, because this hit my family very closely, was that one of the number one things you can do to help to abate addiction is to establish connection, whether
Mhm.
that's connection to a higher power, connection to a family, connection to a friend or a community group, connection. And that was the final thing that I've done in my healing journey, is to bring this connection from inside here in my little sitting room in my bedroom, me sitting here alone all day, doing whatever, perseverating, ruminating. I'm reaching out to other people. I'm learning about other people's experience. I'm talking to other people. I'm making eye contact with people where I go. And my life is changing because of that, because of the connection aspect.
Mhm. I just said this to, I can't remember who I was talking to, and I said, "You really just need one good friend." And I watched something on social media today, and this man who transitioned into a man showed three of his friends behind the scenes and how they were there for him. And when he first decided that he just no longer to could be this way anymore, the thoughts that he had and how they questioned, but they supported, and then they questioned, and then they supported, and then they questioned, and then it was just like, "Okay, we love you," and one of them said, "And if anybody tries to say anything to you, just let me know, I'll bop them in the face." And I just thought, that is the kind of support that people need. One good friend. I watched another story of a young man who had a best friend from childhood all the way up into now, and he's 40, and transitioned from a girl to a man, and he was best man at this guy's wedding. When he told his parents he was displaced and he moved in with his friend who supported him. And so I do think that it's really important to, of course, have a connection with your higher power, spirit, God, whatever you want to call that.
Yep.
But we are community based people. Humans crave connection.
And if you look at it from the higher power perspective, we are God made incarnate. And so when we reach out to someone else, we are their higher power in that moment. Um,
Mm.
and I think you know that my family has experienced the LGBTQIA lifestyle in close friends and in family. And what I can say from observing transitions is that without that connection, it is a dark and lonely place, even when you know in your heart, even when you are convicted that this is the right move for you, without your community to support you and to be there uplifting you, it is a dark and desolate and or can be a dark and desolate and lonely place.
Mhm.
So that coming together, that being there for other people, and it starts, and I mentioned this last time, and I'll say it again and again, with getting our head away from our phones and making eye contact as we go through doors, making eye contact as we're standing in line, making eye contact with other people and a smile. And it starts there and it just balloons out and it helps us know we're not alone and we're not connected. No, we're not disconnected, no matter what side of the aisle we stand on politically.
I just I listen to Joe Dispenza a lot, and today he was talking about the neuroscience of the brain. He's a scientist and he studies this, and he said the very most important time of the day is the very first moments when you wake up, because your brain is going to believe what you tell it. Your
Yep.
brain's going to believe a reality. It's like walking on a pathway through the grass, right? And the more you walk that path, the more you can see the grass kind of wears away and it just becomes furrowed and it becomes deeper. So if I wake up and I say, I am an amazing human being, I live for connection, everything comes to me, and my life is blessed and wonderful, and I'm doing whatever I'm doing,
Mhm.
before you look at your phone, before those negative thoughts come in, because we're human. Let's face it. We can't be all rainbows and sunshine all the time. We just that we're not wired that way, but we can make it better and easier. And that's the most important time of the day because it's when your brain is most receptive.
Yep.
So I thought to myself, I'm going to write myself a little script, exactly
So
what he said,
yep.
and read it every single morning before I do anything to rewire that part of my consciousness.
Yeah. And that the power of having a process for when you wake up
Mhm,
transcends other negativity you encounter, and it moves with you through your day. So,
mhm.
having that personal practice in the morning, whether it's prayer, whether it's mantras, whether it is simply you lying there breathing and allowing whatever happens to happen, but doing it with intention is going to build those neural pathways, like you mentioned, like the grass, and it creates connections where there was disconnect before. It's So powerful to just and I've been practicing that for the last couple of weeks myself because I realized I had gotten into a really bad habit of waking up and saying, "Okay, what's the new news? What's going on now?" Especially because I do have trans and queer friends and family, and that's the community that I feel like I'm here to protect and to stand and to talk for and to fight for right now. And so I wanted to know what the new news was, so I knew what stance to have. No, what I wanna know is what power I have within me, what higher power is speaking through me, and I can't hear that if I've cluttered it with other people's thoughts first thing.
And we do have power.
We do.
Our thoughts have power. It
Mhm.
creates a ripple effect that have you ever walked into a room and without anybody saying anything, looking at you, you can feel either a positive energy, like you can just feel the warmth and you look around and you're like, "These are my people," or you can walk into the same room with different set of people and you just know,
I
"I don't
used
feel comfortable here."
yeah. I used to try to convince teachers of that because I could tell when I hit the classroom what kind of family they had created,
Mhm.
and that translated to the playground. That translated to what happened outside their classroom doors. It did not have to do with who the teacher was. It had to do with how the teacher was and how they
Exactly.
taught children to resource themselves. And yes, that energy is everything.
I just gotta bring this up because I listened to your Mama Kate love note today, and you were talking about how you when you were an educator and you may not have been the brightest or the best educator, and I was almost gonna comment on that. I was like, "Baloney. You don't have to be the sharpest, the smartest, crayon in the box. The most beneficial educator is the one that has the heart, the
Yep.
love, the tolerance, the connection. So, I'm not buying that. You were the best.
Well, and I'm going based on state test scores or whatever
Yeah.
other metrics you want to use. And
Yeah.
that's why I would tell the parents at the beginning, look, I will be the best teacher your kids ever have for how to be a better human. I will teach them that in 3rd, 4th, 5th, whatever grade,
Mhm.
and it will be a habit that transcends everything else that happens to them if you just let me have that latitude with your kiddo. Just
Isn't that what's
what's
most important anyway?
yeah,
Is love and tolerance. That's our code.
yeah.
That is the code. Alright, I'm gonna read a quote here because we are both artists. And I truly believe that everyone is an artist. We have art that's trying to ooze out of us. If we latch on and embrace it, it can make a huge difference in our lives, as it did for me. But the quote that I wanted to read art should comfort the disturbed and it should disturb the comfortable. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit because I am seeing more and more artists on social media use their art
Mhm.
as a way of expression and the direction of truth and love. Think about the songs, some of the songs that are just exploding
Yep.
about women's rights and how we're not going to stand for this. We have come too far and we're standing up for ourselves. And then you can see artist drawings and depictions. I think expression through
Mhm.
art is imperative because art, colors, lines, anything that you paint or you draw can
Mhm.
express sometimes what words can't.
Yeah, and if you allow art to speak through you, it has a message for you, and if you're comfortable in your space, just allow the color to flow and participate in and I didn't intend to show this, but I'm going to anyway because this art is art I
Mhm,
did painting the Dark Goddess this weekend with Whitney Freya,
mhm,
and it disturbed me.
mhm.
It totally disturbed me, it knocked me off my comfort zone. I had to look at why is it that this is what came through? I'm used to painting pretty little owls and things that bring people comfort, and this came through, I believe that it was a response to my opinion on the hurt people are experiencing right now and my willingness to step forward, and that's the Kali, that's the goddess Kali, and to step forward and be willing to be like Kali and to disrupt what is happening in the comfortable zones and be willing to say the hard things and do the hard things and move in the hard ways, even hard for me. So
Mhm.
this is where we are in the world right now is not where I would call comfortable for where I thought I would be in my retirement years, which I am now. I saw myself floating around, traveling, which I am, in these comfortable spaces and sunning myself and just holding babies and everything being happy. And the world is speaking otherwise. The world is telling me that my fierceness might be necessary in a loving way, in a disruptive way, in a way that helps people get into a little bit of an ease with hearing what might be hard to hear or acting in a way that might be out of the comfort zone. And
Mm.
so that quote is so perfect because that's what I saw happen to myself. And I'm used to painting and being in the art world, but I'd gotten comfortable. My very own art knocked me off my rocker a little bit and helped me open my eyes and see that I have more to give than sunning myself on a beach and holding babies, although those are fun things to do.
I've taken numerous art classes, and boy, I can't remember her name right now, but she has a wonderful class every year, and she talks about paint it ugly.
Mhm.
I don't wanna see pretty. I want to see ugly. Purposefully make mud, make ugly things. If it looks pretty, you didn't do it right, start over. And that is a real challenge. It's a challenge for me because I want it to look pretty.
Well, and
And
that's I wasn't gonna show anybody Kali because who wants to see that Mama Kate painted something that looks so disruptive?
yeah,
So I'm with
yeah,
you. It
yeah,
it
it's
makes
it's an
me
uncomfortable
uncomfortable.
feeling. You wanna fix it.
Yeah.
We're fixers.
Well,
That
and
was my
so
big lesson this
yeah.
weekend is I had an uncomfortable altercation that I witnessed, and I felt it in my chest, and I had this pain in my chest, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh," and Jacob, our coach, said, "You've gotta sit with that." I'm like, "I don't wanna sit with it. I don't like it. I wanna get out of here," and he goes, "No, the lesson is in sitting with the discomfort because you're a fixer
Yeah.
and you can't fix everything." And that just hit me like right here. Oh my gosh, I am a fixer.
And sitting in that discomfort is he's a wonderful coach. But it is having someone willing to tell you to stay in your dirty diaper and to
Mm,
stay there for a little while until you're ready to release it.
mm,
Because until you're really ready to release it, it's like letting the dirty diaper fall, but putting on clean underwear with the crap all over your ass,
mhm.
right? And why continue doing that in our life? So if you get to sit with it and you decide you're really ready to shift it and change it, that's when the power comes in. And that's when you get to paint pretty things or leave it that way as a reminder.
I think it's important to leave it, to not
Kali's gonna
fix it.
stay.
We should show them some of the things that we have both done, and it's so
Yeah.
funny because you showed me your little piece.
Yeah.
We have
And
some practice for you guys.
this is just a simple thing, and there are 2
Yeah.
ways to do it. 2 ways to do it. One is to find a word that helps you process or helps you hold on through the darkness, whether that's joy or play or hold on or whatever the word may be. It might be a person's name, and you simply write. That so you start with a circle and you
Mhm,
draw a cross and then you draw an asterisk, and at each point, you start in the center and you write that word out from each spoke, and then you begin connecting those letters around and you make a mandala. The other way is to start with that word in the center of a circle and just draw simple shapes around. I just drew little loopies and straight lines, little loopies and straight lines, and I can keep going on this forever and ever and ever and change it and shift it and change it and shift it, and it becomes a symbol for that joy, that word, even though in the end you don't end up seeing the word because it ends up looking like spokes of this mandala that
mhm.
continues to grow out. That word stays there as a symbol for you to hold on to. And so simply picking up your pen, and I was doing this while I was waiting for Dawn to start the thing. I just drew a circle, put the word in, and between 8:30 and whenever we logged on, I just had made this much of a mandala, and I can just keep going.
Yeah, the awesome thing about that is when you put that word in and then you're just doodling or free forming, or you're creating these new neural pathways
Yep,
and you're just like re-saying the word joy and looking at it over and over while you're doing this
yep,
art, and
yep.
it causes that pathway
And that whole
to
mandala will have
in
the
your brain.
frequency of joy when it's
Yeah.
finished, and
Yeah.
will be something that I can hang on my wall when I'm done because it carries the frequency.
So I love having my little art journal, I call it. And instead of writing, I'll paint. This is just some sketches of some hands, but I travel a lot and I like to take this with me and watercolors, pencils, simple travel things. And this little circle, I love the spirals, right? So I thought I'm just going to play with color, make a somewhat of a rainbow feel. And I just outlined it with white. You can use like a little bit of glue and let it dry a little bit, and then just use your watercolors and let them flow together and let them dry. And you
Can you
can
see the eyeball in the center? Little symbols begin to appear in our art and show us things
yeah.
that we didn't know about ourselves.
Mhm.
And that symbol of that eye, that paying attention, even when things are crazy around you, even when things are swirling, even when you're dizzy
Mhm.
with movement,
I
keeping
love
your
the spiral. It's a symbol for me because I don't believe that anything is linear. Grief isn't linear, joy isn't linear, it's spiral. So at some point you might bump up against that, but then you're going to go around again and go wider, and it becomes different and less magnified as your life expands, just like the spiral.
One of the magical things about spirals I love is that each time you go around again, you can scoop up the wisdom from the inner circle, share it with the universe, scoop up the wisdom, share it
Yeah.
with the universe,
And
scoop
it's
up the
never
wisdom.
ending. It's
Mhm.
always going on and on.
Yep.
So, as long as you're here, you have a message of hope and wisdom to share, and that's why I felt so compelled to do this podcast with you, this whole series, because I know that it can be helpful for people.
You bring the joy into every situation, even when it's hard.
In 2022, and there's been a lot of research about neuroscience and the brain, but they did this research study and it showed creative expression, and we've talked about a lot dancing, singing,
Mhm.
movement reduces inflammatory markers associated with political stress. And they did an actual study on that in 2022. Inflammation is what causes disease in the body. It causes heart disease, it causes stomach issues, migraines, it causes cancer. So we do want to decrease that inflammation in our body.
And if
And
you
these
sense that if you get that off of a test score or you're noticing it in your body, your joints, your whatever,
Mhm.
take it in that is a sign of dis-ease as well as
Mhm.
a marker for disease.
Here's another quote I wanna share with everyone. "Caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare." So, what we're telling you here is if you want to make a difference in this world and in this political climate, you've got to start caring for yourself.
And that has been something that has become ever more important for myself because I have had a lot of health issues. If you know anything about me, you know that there has been a very sordid health journey and very recently. And in the last year and a half, I've taken back the reins because I saw the need to be present not only for my own joy and edification, but that my family needed me to hang around. And I was literally on death's door 3
Mhm,
different times in the last decade or so. And the number one thing I can do is not put my health in the doctor's hands, which I'm not against medical support, but it is for me to put my feet on the street and walk and move my body. Motion is lotion for those joints. I have also started a somatic breath work, and that has changed my life. I had no idea how much breath was important for every single organ to operate in its prime faction, but to also connect with higher power, to bring you
mhm,
close to spirit, and
absolutely.
simply moving in joy to whether it's dancing and painting or whether it's something stressful in me just moving in that jellyfish motion, like I said, to get my body into a state of calm, into a state of knowing I'm safe instead of being in that fight or flight. Whether it's nutrition, moving, breathing, sleeping, all of the things that we do for our infant babies, we need to turn on ourself now to
Mhm.
give ourself that level of care.
I see a rheumatologist because I have arthritis,
Mm.
and part of that is genetic. I started getting, like, stomach discomfort because I've been on this NSAID for, I don't know, a year and a half or 2 years, and I was like, "I don't know what it is." I made the decision, I'm not gonna take it anymore, and I started making it a point to walk about 2 miles every day. I don't do it every day, but I try to get my walking in,
I loved your
and
post about your shoes. I hope you're gonna tell that.
oh, yeah, I went to help out my sister, and I forgot my walking shoes. I was like, "This can't be. I don't know what to do." I called my husband, I go, "I forgot my walking shoes." And he goes, "Yeah, just go buy another pair." And I'm
Mhm,
like, "You know what? I'm gonna buy a new pair of walking shoes."
mhm.
And they're so comfortable. But I thought, "You know what? I am a priority, and we'll go out to dinner and or even fast food nowadays. You don't think of a second thought about throwing that money out." But I really had to think about buying that extra pair of walking shoes, but I did, and
You
I
made
got my
yourself
walk
the
in.
priority, and that's what I
Yes.
loved about what you said in your post was
Yeah.
that you were important, and
Yeah.
walking was important,
Yeah.
and you were the priority.
Exactly what you said. The more you move and the more you keep fluid, they just start to feel better, and I am feeling better without the NSAID.
I saw a medical intuitive this weekend, and I'd never done that before. I've really left my health in the care of licensed physicians, and I could not believe how accurate the muscle testing was for it identified every single major issue that I have, and then we identified whether it was emotional or physical.
Mhm.
And the ones that were emotional, I knew it. I knew that my asthma is triggered by worry about
Mhm.
safety. And so if I get myself into the state of being that
Mhm.
all is well. And if I'm doing that, my asthma goes away and I don't need my inhaler.
Do have to do yoga with my granddaughter. In fact, before this podcast, we were supposed to start at 8, and I'm like, "Can we push it back a little bit?" Because Brinley's tugging at me, "Grandma, you didn't do yoga with me today." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, okay, I'll do the yoga."
Out of the mouths of babes. They're
Yeah.
leading us, aren't they?
So we have talked a lot about what you can do. We've given you lots of suggestions.
Mhm.
You don't have to do them all. Pick one. I would like to see what you've done with the drawing that we've suggested and share it in the comments or send us a message with whatever you've done, and we will share them or not if you don't want us to.
I'd also
Because
like to know one thing you did to make yourself the priority.
yes, absolutely. So this is really helpful. But what happens when self-healing isn't quite enough?
Yeah.
Because faith without works is dead. So next week, we're going to dive into a little bit of activism and some things that we can do to make a difference. Obviously, our voices matter, what we say matters, but there's more that we can do. So tune in next week because we're going to dig deep in that and even give you some suggestions, some resources on what you can do to help if you feel called to. And it takes a village, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much again for joining me. And I look forward to next week when we dig into the activism. Share this with your friends. Show us what you've done or tell us what you've done to make yourself a priority. We'll see you next week on Catch Some Soul Shine.